Alright, we are recording for chapter 6 of Return of the Jedi. It's actually funny, I probably wrote the most notes on this one, but by and large I like it. I actually really like how it went. But some of it is definitely a, what? Anyway, we'll get to that. So, the bulk of, yeah, really all of it is just the whole, Han, Luke, Chewie, R2 as prisoners are brought to the Ewok village, and 3PO is brought there as their golden god, as gets it kind of, sort of, not really explained later. Um, but one thing that is different from the movie is in this, as the different Ewok leaders come out, which their names are given because it's basically we're taking a third person unlimited view instead of third person limited. Um, they come out and they're named, and the medicine Ewok, he's essentially just going through and he's looking at them. He what did it say? He smells Han. He tests Luke's clothing and just like that, see what the fabric is. Chewie growls at him and he jumps back. When he gets to R2 though, he keeps inspecting, and then orders him released. Orders R2 released. What does R2 do? Well, just like in the movie, he starts chasing around one of the other guys and zaps him. Which it describes that basically half the crowd of Ewoks are like, no, you shouldn't be doing this, it's horrible, and the other half are laughing. So, yeah. It's not clear why this happened necessarily, why he chose to free R2, but whatever. It is just one of those differences. And the fact that it doesn't seem to actually impair anything, that he was zapping this other guy who was also like one of the higher ups there, but the medicine guy is higher still. And also there was like another guy who was higher, but anyhow. Um, we still have the whole, how does Luke get them out of it? He levitates 3PO because it's the whole 3PO tries telling them, no, you can't burn them, they're my friends. But it's like, well, no, we're burning them as a sacrifice to you. We're doing that. So say goodbye to them. I mean, it's, which is kind of weird already, but in any case, Luke levitates them. And then they free them, so he runs over and hugs Han, and who has also been freed, and Leia, who had run out already. There's no mention of Chewie here, which I find interesting, because, like, I mean, why wouldn't they hug Chewie? I mean, Chewie likes hugs. We know this. He's hugged plenty of people. But doing this, and then it's like Luke remembers, oh yeah, I'm levitating 3PO over there, and sets him down. It's like, I'm sorry, I just find this aspect of the Force curious, and I think it shouldn't be this way, that you can just forget you did something Force, especially when it's like, he had to concentrate. He has to, like, just stop talking, just focus down on just the image of 3PO, his golden form, on his chair. Well, actually, 3PO was standing, but seeing both, has to visualize that very carefully and then visualize it rising into the air. He has to see that. He has to blot out everything, like the just ramblings, the rantings of 3PO, which honestly at this point he should be very good at because that's what 3PO does. He has to do all that. So much concentration, then it's like, oh yeah, I can just totally forget that he's there and he'll keep hanging there. I mean, it's just, I don't, it feels like one of those things where it's like, yeah, I don't think you quite understand how concentration works. I mean, I know that there's a concept of that in some role-playing games, at least, where it's like, okay, if you're concentrating on something, you can't do other things, but it's like, you're not unconsciously concentrating. That's not how that works. That's the problem that I have. It's like, he's unconsciously concentrating still. Anyhow. Oh yeah, one thing that I do find very odd is that it describes this as the first success of this mission. The first success against the Empire in this mission. It's like, um, getting through the shield would have been the first success. Killing the scouts, defeating the scouts, so they can't report in your presence, would be a success. Are the Ewoks part of the Empire? How is this even a victory over the Empire in this mission, when it's the Ewoks you're dealing with? There is actually one page I do want to read some from, but here, let me just... no, that's not it. Wicked actually has a pretty good speech. It might actually be this page. Yes, to gain the first victory of this campaign against, it seemed to all of them a strange setting which to gain the first victory of this campaign against the Empire. I mean, I guess it depends on what you count as a campaign, but the early, you'd include the whole of the mission from their perspective, which would be Shield and then Scouts, and then this, and it's like, yeah, I have a feeling that at the moment that was being written, they were just either had a different thought in mind, or they were forgetting that no, there's actually other things that we already did, like previous chapter. Anyhow, so yeah, after they are freed, now they are in the main main house, to basically talk about what's happening, about potentially getting the Ewoks to help. There's a problem here. The larger situation here, the movie does better. But some of what the book does is actually really good, and I do like it. But the larger situation in the movie is better, where it seems that 3PO is just telling them the story of what's happening, which makes perfect sense to do. He can talk to them. They are going to be very interested and very curious about these beings that they've never encountered anything like before. So you tell them a story. He's not a storyteller. 3PO has made that comment before, so what does he actually do? He recounts the history of events for all this. That makes the most sense. And then at the end of this, in the movie, it's like, okay, because of our thanks for this story, which is, in my opinion, quite understandable. Because story is likely going to be very, very important to them. Just any culture, really, story is very important. The significance of it will vary over time, and especially with different media, whether it is film, book, or oral tradition. For them, it would most likely be oral tradition. There's no indication that they are anything but prehistoric. But it's like, could see that alone being enough for, you're joining out, you are now part of our tribe, therefore we will fight with you. And it's like, that's it. That's enough. You don't need more of that. In the book, however, it's like, no, they actually sit down for like a council to try to sway the Ewoks to help them. I don't understand the why here. Because it's like, if anything, I would see especially Luke and Han being like, okay, we need to go because we need to save them as well. And it's like, not see a value there. Leia might be able to sway them that no, they can help. Just because of actually what happens later as well. But the whole, in the previous chapter, was it the previous one, the one before? Anyway, her connecting with the force, basically, of Endor, the life force of Endor, force of the force itself. That makes sense for her to stand up to do that. But still, there's no discussion, there's no explanation for why they would think, yes, let's work with, let's try to get the Ewoks involved here. Nothing. And you're going up against blasters with stone knives. Yeah, I don't... You need an explanation here. It, again, feels like an Empire. We're just doing it because, well, we want the Ewoks to fight. And it's like, okay, but why would you want that? I mean, you want the scene, I get it. You want the image, I get it. But you need to give rational, logical steps to get there. So anyway, 3PO tells the story to them. That's, just like in the movie. But he's telling them and trying to convince them. And then, like, nah. That's your thing. That's not our thing. Why would we care? So Han starts talking. And has 3PO translate. And Han, I think that this moment is in there more so to try to continue to show his evolution as a character. Because he basically tells them, yeah, don't do it for us, don't do it for this, do it because your friends need you. Because this is something that is a revelation for him, so he's sharing it. That does make some sense. I don't understand why he thinks it would work. I mean, no. I understand why he would be excited and want to share it. That I understand. Why he thinks that would actually sway them is what I don't get. But there's also, he says something, it's like, okay, this needs to be explained. What are you talking about? He actually tries to convince them that, well, the Empire is using a lot of Endor's energy to power that shield. And when winter comes, you won't have that energy to use. What the hell energy is the Empire using? What energy could the Empire possibly be using for the shield that the Ewoks can use or even understand? Like, They are Stone Age. They have fire. Fire likely coming from the trees, although, well, wood from the trees. Most likely, though, either certain trees or the dead limbs that fall. Right, that they then collect, something like that. That's the most that they would be doing, right? Are we to believe that the shield generator is being powered by wood? Yeah. Luke tries convincing them. I don't remember what he said because it did not work, and neither did Han. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and something else with I have this note with the Han thing, but it may also be true. Yes. Wait, no, I do kind of remember what Luke was saying. He was basically trying to, at least acknowledge that, yeah, this is an abstract thought, but basically, if you look at all those stars, there's a world, there are worlds and moons on each of them and people there, and you need to care about them because, if they're being destroyed and you may be destroyed too, and it's like, they have no understanding of this. It is too abstract, and there's also going back a bit, their language should be very primitive. In fact, 3PO even described it as primitive. So it's like, why would they have the words for half of what they're talking about? They might not even have a word for empire, okay? So, I mean, I guess one way to put it is this. I have no idea, but let's say that the English language has a vocabulary of, say, 10 million words. I don't know, I'm just pulling a number out of somewhere. That it's a large number. I could actually believe that the total is larger than the actual total is larger than that, but let's just say 10 million. I could absolutely believe that the Ewok language at this point would be 10,000 words or lower. You're not getting various things across to them. It's not going to be possible. Yeah, so like shield. I don't think that they'd understand that. They might not even understand energy. Okay? So that whole argument wouldn't necessarily work. Winter might. If they have seasons. Honestly, it's hard to tell with Star Wars plans because they all seem to be just monoclimates. So does it actually change over the course of a year? I don't know. But still, it's that they may get energy. No, there's no reason to believe they would understand it. Leia, however, I think it's beyond any doubt, and I just realized I leaned back, that may mess with the camera. It is beyond any doubt Leia is using the Force. She's not necessarily aware that that's what she's doing, but she is using it. And in this, she's basically using it to connect with all the Ewoks, and describes like how they start just all breathing in sync even. But she's connecting with them, everything around, all that. So she's gaining a sense of things, and she has a very simple plea. And it doesn't say that 3PO translates it. I guess we just have to assume that he is. I mean, it's just odd when sometimes you have it stated that the translator is doing this, and then other times you don't. So it's like, okay, do we assume that he is? Because it's even with Luke, right prior, I'm pretty sure even said 3PO was pausing to make sure he was choosing exactly the right word. And then we just have Leia speak, and apparently the Ewoks just understand. It's like we're not mentioning that 3PO is doing any translation. So it's like you broke the pattern that, oh, he is translating everything. Because now he is not... You said he translated, and then you stopped. But anyhow, what is a very simple plea? Do it for the trees. This actually makes a lot of sense. Both that they would need to think about it, because it is something that Luke, Han, and Leia would not have an awareness of. But it is also a very good statement, very good plea, because the Ewoks are clearly going to be a culture that trees are very important to. They live amongst them. They use wood from some kind of tree, at least, maybe not the ones that they live in, but still, trees are going to be very important to their culture. So do it for the trees. It's like, she doesn't necessarily know what the significance of the trees are, but there would certainly be a sort of spiritualistic or naturalistic relationship with them, feeling that trees give life, and therefore Ewoks have a responsibility to protect the lives of the trees as well. So she says this, which doesn't provoke anything from the elders, but does provoke Wicket, and he goes on quite a speech. The first part of it, I don't like. Mainly because I don't understand it. Not as a, I don't understand the meaning there. No, I understand the meaning there because it has meaning to me. I don't understand why it would have any meaning to the Ewoks. That's the problem. Because he starts talking about how the Golden God has returned to us. 3PO, they are assuming is the Golden God, has returned to us. His return has been prophesied since the first trees. There's a prophecy. He's returned to us and told us of freedom, told us we are free. That he has returned to us and we are not his slaves, that we are free to choose freedom. They understand these concepts? I understand the concept of freedom. I understand the concept of slavery. But I don't understand the Ewoks' view of this. Because I'm like, many people have different views on freedom already. So it's like Ewoks as a culture, it's a completely alien culture. It's a very primitive culture as well. So their understanding of freedom may be radically different from mine. And I'm not even sure if they would have a concept of freedom. And to help give an idea, it is not unreasonable that from their point of view, if 3PO were to command them, if they were to actually treat 3PO as their golden god who will now rule over them, it is actually possible they will consider that freedom. I'm serious. Because if he were an actual god, he will protect them. Right? So by them serving him, being in effect slaves to him, they are guaranteed certain benefits, such as protection for food and such, shelter, things like that. He will provide because that's what a god can do. And so they can actually see that as a greater freedom than being essentially slaves to trying to ensure their own survival. That's not an unreasonable thought for a very primitive culture to have that is going to constantly have to be concerned with survival. So somebody offering them greater chances of survival, I'm not sure of the best way to put it. I'm still kind of tired and got a headache. But somebody offering them such protection could actually itself be freedom to them. And they could choose that, even though we may see that as slavery. So it's like, no, what is the concept of freedom for Ewoks here? What is this prophecy? I don't understand it because I'm not an Ewok. But I do recognize that, and I can understand not everyone reading it would recognize this, but I do see it and be like, okay, I don't know what the meaning is for them. I know what the meaning is for me, but I don't know what it is for them. But it's also, I'm the reader. I've read the other books. I've read the beginning of this book. I understand why the Empire needs to be fought. So trying to convince me on freedom is like, well, no, I'm already sold on that. You need to give me some other reasons, or you don't need to give me any reasons. I'm going to help you. So it's like, you need to remember, sometimes you write to the reader who's the audience. Sometimes you write to the audience in the story, and that felt like they were writing to the reader audience, but the speech is directed at an in-universe audience. And we're not the same. That's my main criticism there, and why I don't like that portion of the speech. The rest of it, actually, I really do like. And part of it I will try to read out. So there's like 3 parts to the speech. That first one with the freedom thing that I didn't much care for. The second part was him likening the Empire to a fire. And by the way, I'll just add how I said they might not even have a concept of empire, of the word empire. They would understand fire because they live amongst the trees. The trees are very important to them. The first trees. This is a significant time concept to them. Like, this would be their genesis kind of thing, is the first trees, right? So he talks about how, well, he's referring to the Empire as a fire sweeping through the trees. And that you need to, when the fire is coming, you need to stop what you're doing and fight it. And yes, you may die, but you need to do that because you need to protect the trees. It's actually pretty well done. I'm not explaining it as well as it is written, but it is actually very poignant and makes perfect sense here. They care about the trees. So by likening the Empire to a fire, they will understand now, because it's very possible some of them have encountered fires themselves, or at least had to go off and fight them. And potentially even fires far removed from where they live. Because if the fire is over there, it could come here. We have to go and put that one out in order to save here. But the last part That I think is even better. Hey, I'm just because it is also not only the great tree of which all things are part, nor its leaves, nor its roots, nor its birds, all are in peril forever and ever. It is a brave thing to confront such a fire, honorable elders. Many will die, but the force lives on. But the Ewoks are brave. It's like this is actually pretty good. I really do like how he's doing it there. Um, yeah. Then before I should have started a sentence earlier. When the fire reaches the forest, who is safe? Not even the great tree. Anyway. Yeah, where does he start? Okay, earlier than that. Okay, yeah, I guess it is just that entire paragraph. Honorable elders, we must aid this noble party not less for the trees, but more for the sake of the leaves on the trees. These rebels are like the Ewoks, who are like the leaves, battered by the wind, eaten without thought by the tumult of locusts that inhabit the world. Yet do we throw ourselves on smoldering fires, that another may know the warmth of light. Yet do we make a soft bed of ourselves, that another may know rest. Yet do we swirl in the wind that assails us, to send the fear of chaos into the hearts of our enemies. Yet do we change color, even as the season calls upon us to change. So must we help our leaf brothers, these rebels, for so has come a season of change upon us. That's good. I really like that. Because that is not only so descriptive in a way that the reader will understand, the human reader, but it's making these references to what would be of obvious importance to the Ewoks. That's why he's sharing the idea of the tree and the leaves, and that the Ewoks are like the leaves and how they're connected with the trees. And it actually said somewhere else when he was here it is. It was part of the other one. His friends tell us of a force, a great living spirit of which we are all part, even as the leaves are things separate yet part of the tree. We know this spirit, honorable elders, though we call it not the force. I mean, it's actually so well done here. Because this is actually explaining their culture there. The whole leaves, and the Ewoks being related to the leaves, and how the leaves then relate to the tree, and how they're all connected together. And then to call them Leaf Brothers, just connecting us all together. He is evoking very powerfully. Like, it's not my culture, but it's like I can still recognize the power here of his words. Trying to get them to understand this, and that we're bringing all of it together. This is so well written. This is an excellent speech. Wicked is so much better than just a teddy bear. But yeah, I mean, it's like that is so good. And so far beyond the whole talking about freedom stuff, because as I said, we don't have that understanding. And the whole leaf and tree there, I realize, is also a way to help me explain what I was saying before about the freedom aspect. They could see a leaf connected to a tree being more free because it is serving the tree, but also the tree is serving it. The tree is feeding the leaf as well, because it grows from the tree. That is more free than when it is cut or just falls on its own. Where now it's no longer bound to the tree, but now it will wither and die. So they actually see that as greater freedom. So if them being leaves then on the golden god could be seen as greater freedom than the golden god saying, no, you can be separate from me. You can choose not to be attached to me. That would be that would be suggesting withering, though. So that's why I mean the whole talking about freedom doesn't make a lot of sense actually. Because it might not have meaning to them. But this does. This is such a well-written speech right there from a frickin' Ewok. Page 600, by the way, if you ever pick this up and want to read it. It really is good. It really is good. And it even describes after this that basically they don't even talk. So it's almost... Perhaps they were telepathic, it even says. Yeah, the elders were moved without saying another word. They nodded in agreement. Perhaps they were telepathic. I mean, it's like, they don't even need to talk about it. Wicked has so perfectly captured the point here of why they need to fight, why they need to help the rebels, that they don't, nope, no discussion is necessary. We fight, that they are part of our tribe. They are our Leaf Brothers. We will help them. So good. So good. Yeah, so you could, if you cut out the freedom of the 3 parts, that first part with the freedom stuff and the golden god prophecy stuff, you cut that out. It is very, very well done. Very well done. So the last bit that I have to talk about is the Luke and Leia talking. And Luke telling her Vader is my father. Which, how that's never come up before is actually kind of curious. Well, no, I take that back. It makes perfect sense. Because in the 6 months? 6 months between Empire and this, his focus would have been on rescuing Han, so he wouldn't have talked to her about that, about Vader being his father. And that's fine. That's reasonable, because it might be even if it is he wants to talk about it, because it's like, I'm going to explode if I don't talk to somebody about this. Even if it was something like that, he can always go, but I need to focus on saving Han. So it actually makes a lot of sense that would wait. And actually, a lot of what it is there, a lot of the back and forth between them, the talking there, I like better in the book than in the movie. And partly because of the emotional crises that they are put through. Especially Leia, since, Luke is having a hard time saying anything because he's losing his nerve to tell her. Because it is kind of a scary and horrible thing. Even if it is the truth, it's still scary and horrible. But he knows he has to, so he goes through with it. And she is weeping from some of this. Not so much the whole Vader is my father as well, but more the whole understanding that they are brother and sister, that they are family. That, yes, this connection that she has been feeling for him for... you might be able to argue it goes back much earlier, but certainly within the book, just a couple chapters ago when they were in the briefing room, and she felt something different, that he seemed older, was part of how it was described in there. To have that confirmed as, yes, there is a special connection between them. It is that of brother and sister. It's like, that would be very significant too. I don't remember what word exactly I said a little bit ago as I started trying to remember the meeting, the briefing room. But it's like, that makes actually a lot of sense. It also gives a little more weight, because again, we can be inside of her head now with when he is asking her about, what do you remember about your mother? And she starts having these visions of it, and it is actually described somewhat similarly to when he was having visions in Empire that ultimately led him to leaving for Cloud City to rescue them. So it's like, again, she's using the Force here. And it's like, this is actually kind of nice. A lot of the talk, there is actually one thing that I think wasn't good to have in there, but a lot of the conversation, like, there's a point that he makes that I don't like. But for what is written, it is very good. Wickett's last thing there was better, but as far as like actual strength and power in these words, it is not necessarily at that level. It is still good, very good. Really, for the most part, it would just be word choices that I would criticize. So it's like, we can tone that down a little bit without actually losing anything, because it seems a little overdone. Like this would, change it. Things like that. Nitpicking. The thing I don't like, the point I don't like, is actually Leia in her head thinking about how, no, Luke, I can't save the rebellion, because Luke does basically warn her that if I die, you are the only hope. It's like, she's like, no, I'm not. What are you talking about? I can't be. I'm not capable of that. I can't do what you. No. I can't be any of that. It's you. I'm totally on point. It's like, what are you talking about, woman? Do you not remember a few years ago with A New Hope? You were critical then. You are a senator who helped found. Well, no, not helped found, but has been supporting the rebellion through thick and thin. You are easily one of the most important and significant leaders in it. Yes, your role has diminished some, but really that's just in this book, and probably just to serve this book, not the other two. What are you talking about? Luke is way more the upstart than you are. It's like, Luke is a fighter, is a warrior. That's about it. You are a leader, Leia. You are definitely of value. You definitely important. Her talking about how, or rather thinking about how, no, I can't do this. It's like, no. You have demonstrated a greater overall value to the rebellion than he has. And it's like, it's barely even a comparison. I guess a way to put it is this. She is like a queen, he is like a knight. Okay? And I don't mean that in chess terms, although that does kind of work. But I do mean, like, she is a ruler. She is at that level. He's a knight. He goes out. He's a knight errant. He goes out on these errands. He goes out to do things. But he would return to her, and then she would tell him what to do next. That is the difference here. Her downplaying herself, I don't like it because it's not accurate. And they did kind of sort of set up a change for her that would allow this in Empire, but I don't think I think that could be set aside a little bit, and even then, it's still that doesn't explain this. That was when Lando said that Vader's after somebody called Skywalker. She had been thinking at the time that she was actually important, that Vader wanted her. But now it's like, they're after Luke, not after me? So that could be taken as a, yes, you are no longer as significant to Vader, but it's like, you're still important, Leia. Why are you freaking out? Why would you think, no, I'm not of any value to the rebellion decides how valuable you are to the rebellion, not Vader. And it's also Vader, to a degree, can be capricious in who he considers significant, who takes his interest. Because Vader has to operate at this level, okay? Has to operate very high. He is second to the Emperor, okay? Which means then that if he doesn't have a specific reason to focus his efforts on you, you're not significant to him. Doesn't mean you're not significant. It just means you're not significant to him. I'm saying he would also consider Mon Mothma, the president of the Alliance, insignificant to him because Luke is that important to him. It doesn't mean that she is without value. It doesn't mean she is not significant. It does not mean she is not a threat. It just means his focus is elsewhere. It is part of how it works. I'm sorry, but that is part of how it works. That who you select as your enemy doesn't mean that somebody else is not a threat. Okay? It just means that they are not who you are focused on because they are not who you were most recognizing as an enemy. And also there can be greater and lesser enemies, but it's just, yeah. That's kind of it. The chapter ends with Luke being with Vader at the landing pad. So he's turned himself in. Luke, the lightsaber has been handed to Vader, so the whole conversation between them is going to happen in a moment. One thing a little interesting, and I do wonder if the conversation will be different at all from in the movie, because the way the setup at the end of this chapter, of chapter 6, has Vader hyped, essentially. He is excited. There is something built up in him. Like he could be bounding with his steps if he were to start walking, kind of thing. Like he is. But in the movie, and I do wonder, we're gonna have to get, assuming that there's gonna be similar. In the movie, there almost seems to be a sadness to Vader. Which makes sense, in like a level of, I am turning over to the Emperor and most likely you will die. And he doesn't necessarily want that. Like, there is a sadness there. Almost like he does love his son and he does want him there, but he doesn't love him enough to protect him. And so there's a sadness for Luke there and a sadness for himself. Like, indeed you are powerful. It's like there's a sadness there. And the way Vader will even turn away from Luke and look away is very much a sad man conversing with another man. Like, there's disappointment there. This dude was almost feeling like, he could just walk out there and take on everyone. Victory too he sensed, mastery, but laced with something else. What was it? He couldn't see it quite. Always in motion in the future, difficult to see. Its apparitions tantalized him, swirling specters, always changing. Smoky was his future, thunderous with conquest and destruction. Very close now, almost there. He purred in the pit of his throat, like a wildcat smelling game on the air. Almost here. This dude is not going to be sad. Okay? He's not with that confrontation. Which is what I've always interpreted from that scene in the movie. You could say I'm wrong. That's fine. That's still my interpretation. So, how does he get from purring in anticipation to, indeed you are powerful? Kind of, where there's a sadness there. I mean, it could almost even be taken as, if only you weren't as powerful, then we wouldn't need to kill you. But I know we need to kill you. It could almost be that. I mean, it's like, how do we get that letdown from him? It can be done. Don't get me wrong. It can be done. But is it going to be done in a way such, is the way it's going to be done going to follow the conversation is longer than what's in the movie, or is it going to be that we get in Vader's head? I don't know. And I am concerned that we might end up just, really throwing a switch here without explanation. Because, no, he needs to be a bit sadder here. The desire for redemption has begun now. As opposed to it being a little later. It's like that's possible. I kind of hope it is like that. That it's not, because you build up to Vader wanting to be redeemed, instead of it just happening. But I am cautious right now. I'm not cautiously optimistic or cautiously pessimistic. I'm just cautious at the moment for what the next chapter will bring. But that for me will be tomorrow at the earliest, and because of what day it is, it will be next week when this video comes out, because I put them all out on Fridays. On Saturdays. It is Friday. Yeah. Sorry. I'm at some point I may try changing that. I don't know, and I don't. Video's already long. Why not let it be a little bit longer? I have considered the possibility of trying to do these daily, almost. Where it's like, okay, I read a chapter, I do the recording. Sometimes it's the next day I actually upload it. There's no editing. It just takes a while to process, because I do this in the evening typically. I don't want my laptop running that long into the night. So it's like, put them up the next day. I could do that, but then it's like, whenever I skip a day, for whatever reason, it's like, well, it might throw somebody off if they're expecting it, versus, no, they just always come out on Saturday. But I do get the whole dumping 7 videos on Saturday isn't great. I do get that. I don't know which is best. For now I'm doing that, because I'm basically just keeping videos come out on Saturdays. But yeah, and there's also, as I said, sometimes I do want to be able to skip a day, or even a week. I think I took a break of a week between A New Hope and Empire, didn't I? I don't remember now. Or maybe it was between Empire and Return of the Jedi. I am thinking that when I finish this book, I may take some time off before starting on the prequel trilogy, which is over there. It's just over there. I see it right now. I might do that. I'm not sure yet. I'll decide when the time comes. Anyway. See you next time for Chapter 7. And remember, 7, 8, 9. That's it. That's all that's left for Return of the Jedi. Alright. See you then.